Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's regional webinar on Cyber Risks 101, presented by Spin Technology and I4 Asia. To begin the webinar, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dwayne Ashimine, Partner Consultant for Spin. Dwayne is currently sheltering in place in Hawaii, and during his shelter in place, he's actually binge watched everything on Netflix. But most importantly, Dwayne oversees the partner activity in the Asia-Pac region for Spin. So now let me hand it over to Dwayne. Dwayne, take it away.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for that great introduction. As you mentioned, I am sheltering in place in Hawaii, so you can see my lovely home in the background. And we need to change that because I've finished Netflix and I've now moved on to Hulu. But as mentioned, my name is Dwayne Ashimine again. I'm SpinTech's partner consultant and I handle the Asia Pacific region. And I am working out of Honolulu, Hawaii. So aloha, everyone. Let me talk to you a little bit about Spin Technologies. Spin Technologies is an award-winning company that was founded in 2016 and is headquartered in Palo Alto, California. Our mission statement from the very beginning was always to make data safe for the world in the new era of the cloud. We currently have 45 dedicated coders, service, and sales staff working with and supporting all of our 1.5 million users. We're all getting smarter. We talk about ransomware. Everyone is getting smarter about identifying and then deleting phishing attacks, which lead to the introduction of ransomware. But what's been happening is the hackers are getting smarter too. They're figuring out that people are beginning to identify their phishing scams. They're looking for different ways to get into your servers and your hardware to introduce software, ransomware. And through that process, they're more influence into that. So the front line of defense is always still education. We need to be aware. We need to be more aware of the situation, and as well as education awareness of that situation. But Spin 1 is still necessary, and through a three-pillared approach that you can see above, Spin 1 is providing that protection and the added layer to save us from these situations. The first pillar is ransomware protection. It's a patented AI that monitors your systems on a 24-hour, 7-day basis. And it looks for different patterns in your usage or in the things that are adopted, and then works to stop that process right away instead of waiting for it to be discovered later on. The second pillar is full data backup and recovery. There's 99.9% accuracy on recovery of systems. And this is so important because it can take weeks or months, even if you do pay the ransom, to recover files. So you need to have this capability to back up and recover. And many times, because of the AI involved in the ransomware protection, the recovery begins to occur minutes after the attack is discovered and blocked. And many times you'll find that you have recovered the files before you even are notified of that. And the third pillar is application auditing. The first two pillars are very, very important, don't get me wrong. But what I found is that this third pillar, or the auditing pillar, is the most used by professionals like yourself. It provides the ability to monitor, to audit, to review applications and operations for the different users within your company, whether you be a 5-person operation or a 1,000-person operation. The auditing feature helps to make life easier for the IT professional through the use of scoring applications as far as whether they are risky or not, and then blocking those, as well as looking at different usages, looking at different systems. And then also it helps with compliance and certifications that are required in this day and age where there's so much requirements as far as that goes. You as a professional need the help to understand and then also to put together the documentation that is required. With that being said, let me introduce you to the next speaker, which is Austin Piazza. He's our 24-hour, never sleep cybersecurity expert. With that, I'll turn it over to Austin.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, as he mentioned there, I try to do my best to stay awake as long as possible to help keep everybody secure and safe from these attacks. One of the big pieces that Dwayne had mentioned is that Spin and myself, we are 24/7. We work nonstop to try and keep everybody protected. And one of the main things that we do try to keep everybody protected from are these ransomware attacks. And one of the big things that we do want to discuss here with you today, as you see on your screen right now, are the phishing attacks. These have been around for a while. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it, or a colleague of yours has actually shown you a phishing email that they have received. And actually, at this point, there are about 1 trillion phishing emails being sent out every single year, and it is a very lucrative business. More and more people are starting to be hit with these attacks, and therefore they're starting to pay those ransoms. And because of that, it's actually a $20 billion a year industry. And not only that, the attacks are actually growing on a regular basis. So as you see on the next slide here, as COVID is actually going on, these phishing attacks are up 700%. So as we showed you on the last one, it's a very lucrative business to be in. It's a $20 billion a year industry. And because of that, you have more and more criminals on a regular basis starting to get into the space. Not only are they trying to get into the space, but they're also creating new and different types of ransomware scripts that many people have never actually seen before. And they're getting better and better at crafting these emails. So what we're going to show you on the next screen here is an actual video. Before we start this video, one thing that I do want to bring up, we do get a question a lot about, I thought I was already protected with Office and Google. So one of the things is you should probably watch this video right here, and I'll walk you through it. But this is an actual ransomware attack that happened on an Office environment. So you can see it in real time exactly how fast and how easy it is to be misled, and how quickly they can actually encrypt everything. So once we click play on this video here, I'll walk you through it. So this is the hacker's dashboard, and what they're going to be able to do is enter in a victim's email address, and then they'll send email. This is going to be the phishing email that gets sent into their inbox. So once we click on the inbox, you're going to see it arrives in there, and you can see it comes from what looks like their security team with the subject line of important notice. And as you look through it, it looks legitimate. It looks like a real email coming from your security team. So you would have no reason not to click on Secure My Account. Once you click on that, it's actually going to take you to this screen where the application now asks for full read-write access to your mail. But again, because this did look so legitimate from your company, you're going to click accept. Once you accept that, you actually grant full access to the hacker to your inbox. So you can see here, they have the ability to view, encrypt, delete all of the emails that you have. Now, in this case of this ransomware attack, they're not going to delete them. What they're actually going to do is they're going to run the ransomware attack. So once you click this, we're going to go back over into their inbox, and you're going to see one by one, each of their emails now become encrypted. When this happens, they start to panic a little bit, right? You're going to scroll up and down to see what exactly is happening. And then during this time, the hacker is actually going to send you another email. And when this one comes in, it's going to look like it's from your security team again. But what you're going to realize is that it's actually from the hacker, and that hacker is going to let you know that if you do want your data back, you've been hit with the ransomware attack, you need to click this link in order to try and get your files back. At this point, you would have to follow their instructions and hope that you are actually able to get all of your information back. Sometimes people will refresh just to try and make sure that it is real. And as you can see here, every one of their emails are encrypted. You can see how fast and easy this process is. I mean, in less than 2 minutes, they've gained full access to every single one of your emails, all of your files. And again, this is on the Office platform. So while most people think they are already protected with the inherent pieces that are in there, one thing to keep in mind is that when you do accept read-write permissions, you're basically giving full access to these criminals. So we'll move on to the next one here. And what we're going to see on this slide, we actually work with some cybersecurity companies, and we do some consulting with them. And what they actually do is they have a long list of customers, and they run these simulated phishing attacks throughout the years. And last year they did it across all of their customers. And what they found was that it was about an 80% pass rate. And now that people are starting to work more remote, right, there's a lot of new distractions. There's, your kids are at home with you, your pets are at home, you're working inside of, a small, your office or your home office or a home environment, and there's a lot of distractions, things that are going to kind of take away from your normal work of business so that you would, usually identify these attacks. And so what you can see right here is that more than 40% of people are now starting to fail these attacks. And again, it's because more and more people are working remote. It's new environments. There's new distractions that are around you. So it's a great thing to keep in mind. And especially for the next slide, what we're going to show you here, right? What you can see here is that this is the real cost of a ransomware attack. This is a real example from a customer that came to us after they were hit with the ransomware attack. So what they let us know is they had about 50 employees, and the ransom that you can see here, they only asked for about $6,000. Now, a $6,000 ransom is something that you may be able to bounce back from, but what you don't see in the news and what you don't read in the papers is everything that's going to come afterwards. So there's going to be a lot of fines, there's going to be legal fees, there's going to be all kinds of different penalties. And in this case, it actually ended up totaling about $73,000. So what started out as a simple $6,000 cost ended up being a total of $73,000. And that's just the monetary value. As you can see on the right-hand side, there also comes public image, right? If it gets out, if word spreads that you were actually hit with a ransomware attack, one of the problems that you're going to run into is current customers may want to leave you, or your future potential customers may see this as a threat and they may choose your competition over you. So it's a very important thing to have in place. Either have something proactive or to at least be able to put backup and other security features and measures in place at the moment as well.
Hey, thanks, Austin. That was a great talk, great information about ransomware and some of the issues. It was a great video showing you about an actual attack. I believe that's what it was, right, Austin? With that being said, let me introduce Selwyn Yu. He's our Asia partner, and he's with I4 Asia. He's the managing director.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, Dwayne. I appreciate it. My name is Selwyn, and I'm the managing director for I4 Asia. So we're a Filipino company. I'm based in Manila. I'm right now exactly in San Juan City. I'm working from home. Our office is in Pasig, and we are a digital solutions company. So we provide website development, digital marketing, tech support, and we're partners with some of the best cloud solutions in the world. So these are like Microsoft, Google, Spin. So we're here as a local partner for you, and on the screen you will see our product people that you can inquire if you want to use Spin once for your company that you feel after this presentation you want to know more. We can certainly help you. You can screenshot this, or we will show this screen again at the end of the presentation. So don't worry, we're here to help you. Now there's questions you can ask on the board, on the chat, and I know some people are comfortable in English, some prefer Tagalog. You can ask in Tagalog. Marunong po ako mag-Tagalog. Kaya kong sumagot din doon. So don't worry. You can use whatever language you feel comfortable in. There. So now I think everyone has just before is familiar with coming here to learn more about cybersecurity, and I think this is very relevant to us. While you will not hear very often directly from companies about ransomware attacks, is precisely the nature that Austin mentioned earlier. It's a huge impact to your reputation. So no company that's hit with ransomware would want to make that public, because not only do you lose or potentially lose your current customers, news on the internet stays forever, and future clients will really have worries about working with you. But that aside, government and media do have data on it. The Philippines agency that's nearest that's handling this is the Department of Information, Communication and Technology, the ICT. There are laws in place for legal action, but the problem there is most of these attacks are not from the Philippines, and they're very hard to trace. So the best way to protect yourself is prevention. And as you can see, recently, for example, I think this is just last month, 2020, you might have chance on the news that the NBI nabs a 19, 21-year-old student that was not just actually doing attacks, but he was writing code for friends for their own attacks. What he was doing was actually phishing, and sadly, a lot of people were victimized from there. While we do understand that Philippines as a third world country, economic problems of each person varies. That actually does contribute to more attacks, sadly. So yeah, you can see the various article. The attacks are there; they're not going away, and your being here taking this webinar is the first step in protection. Whether you subscribe to Spin One or not, being aware of what's happening, knowing more about it is already a good first step. So thank you. Right now, I think Austin can really show us more, and I want to give it back to Austin and ask Austin about specifically ransomware, how Spin One can help protect us from being attacked by ransomware. So I think from the video earlier, it's already seen that what ransomware is, but Austin can really expound on that. Here's to you,
Great.
Austin.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so here is the actual Spin dashboard that you guys can see. So it's pretty easy to navigate, very intuitive for you guys to see. I'm going to start out, as he asked, requested here, that we start with the ransomware protection. So some of the great things to keep in mind about Spin is that we're not an agent. It's nothing that needs to be put on an individual's laptop or whatever endpoint device that they have. It's just an overlay of a G Suite license. So the great thing about that is you don't actually have to interact with the end users themselves. It's just an overlay of the license that you can do right here from the dashboard. Another great thing about having that ability is that we are actually able to track and monitor a lot of different things about each user. And that's what makes Spin so different and such an industry first. And the reasoning for that is that we're actually able to create kind of a baseline of the file behavior and the user behavior and what these files and users do on a normal basis. And we use that data to create a baseline as to what the normal behavior is for these people. And then what we actually do, instead of, if you see some of these legacy tools, they look for actual scripts. But as someone actually mentioned, there's kids out there that are making new scripts and they're writing new ransomware scripts for their friends and things like that. So there's all different types of new and different ransomware attacks that nobody's seen before. And that's why having something like Spin in place is so important, because we don't actually look for a ransomware attack or what we would call a digital footprint. What we do is we look for abnormal file behavior, and we have proprietary algorithms and specific AI and machine learning that allow us to do this and do it faster than anybody else. So what you can see right here on the dashboard is what you're going to see if you were ever to be hit with a ransomware attack and you had Spin in place. There's an automated incident response plan. So as Dwayne said very early on, this is a 24/7 monitoring solution for you, and it's going to be proactive and take action for you at all times, being fully automated. So if you were to be sleeping at 6 a.m. when this attack happened, our AI would be able to identify this attack. It would be able to figure out exactly what application is causing this attack, and it would be able to cut ties with that application. And then, because we are the only solution on the market that also not only has ransomware, but we also provide the backup for you, we're able to fully automated restore all of those encrypted files for you. So you never have to lift a finger. You wouldn't have to do anything. If you're in bed at 6 o'clock when this attack happens, the entire process would run its course. You'd be completely back in action at 6:21 before you even got out of bed. So the reason that's so important, I'll show you right here. So we would be able to actually click on this. And once you click on it, you would be able to drill in a little bit further. And here you can see that the attack started at 6:03. The entire automated incident response plan ran its course and ended at 6:21, which took about 18 minutes. Now, as you saw in that other video that we showed earlier, the attack happens very, very quickly. So if you did not have an automated solution in place, at 6 a.m., you would have to get out of bed and you would have to start your computer to try and figure out where this attack is coming from. And a lot of times what people end up doing is actually just deleting the user that's being hit. So the person that you saw in the video being encrypted by their files, what you would have to do is go in there and just delete that user. That's what a lot of times what people end up doing. And the problem with that is that it causes a lot of downtime for that individual user. And that's what we wanted to try and avoid. And because of that, we actually now monitor the individual file behavior and cut ties with those malicious applications all the way down at that level. So what we can show you right here is that the very first file began to be encrypted at 6:03 a.m. And if we scroll all the way down to the final 108th file, you're going to be able to see that that last file was actually encrypted at 6:03. So within that 60 seconds, our AI and our algorithms were actually able to identify and stop the attack from happening within that first minute. Now, the other 17 minutes were us going back in time in the versioning, which is why versioning is so important in your backup, which we'll cover in the backup section here. But we go back in time to find the most recent clean version of every one of these files, and then we go to restore these files. Now, we do have some really great relationships with Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and because of that, we do have access to the latest APIs, and those APIs are what allow us to restore and back up the files at such a high velocity. And because of that, that's what makes us an industry leader, and that's what makes Spin.AI with our proactive 24/7 monitoring ransomware protection solution such an important asset to your organization in order to try and protect yourselves as you guys move forward.
Sorry, working from home, my kid was on the side. Yep, I think you brought up some great points, but I think Spin One does beyond that. We have encountered cases where backup and restore on a non-ransomware scenario was also important. Austin, could you maybe show us some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, backup has a lot of different reasons why somebody might need backup. So I'll come right over here. Again, we'll go right back to the dashboard. In the dashboard, you can see your backups, how many items, how much storage is being used. And then right here is where you'd be able to visualize the incremental backups that we have. So again, the dashboard itself, very intuitive, very easy to use and easy to navigate. Now, some of those reasons that I had mentioned before as to why somebody would need backup, there's a couple of different reasons, right? You want it for the ransomware piece so that you can restore any encrypted files, but also on a more day-to-day basis, we've all been in that situation before where you accidentally click delete. I mean, you don't realize you actually need this file until it's too late. So you reach out to somebody on the IT team and you say, hey, can you please help me? I mean, sometimes you're just kind of out of luck. So one of the great things that we allow you to do is to actually go back and restore those. And when you have a backup in place, you have the ability to do that. So you can see right here that we do give you the ability, you can add any of these different users, you can turn on and off very quickly and easily any of the features that you don't really think are important for specific users themselves. Another great thing about Spin is that, and what makes us a lot different than any other competitors that you might see, is the fact that we do actually store metadata for you guys. And what that means is that not only is every version of these files at your fingertips, but we also are able to store and restore folder hierarchies and file placement. So you can see right here, this is a backup that was run at 7 earlier today. And then what you can see here, these are the actual files. So if we click on one of these, you can drill down even further into these folders, and you can see again, there's even subfolders and there's more things you can go into. Now I can also click right here on this, and it's going to show you the sharing permissions. So we do also store that. Now that is very important because let's say somebody accidentally deletes their entire Google Drive. And if you were tasked to have to go back and rebuild it, you'd have to go one by one and restore every single file, build the folders again, and then reshare every single one of those files. And that's going to take up a lot of time, and it's going to end up costing you a lot of money. And that's why we wanted to make Spin such an intuitive platform for you. So when you do need to go make these restores, not only can you restore the file, but it's going to restore everything associated with it. Now, the other great thing about Spin is that we do have version control. And what this means is that every version of these files is going to be at your fingertips. This is great because a lot of times when we move documents into the cloud, and especially now that everybody's working remote, a lot more files are being moved into the cloud so that you guys can share them and move them around across an organization. Now, because those files are changing on a daily, hourly basis, you do want to have different versions of those files. So what you can actually do is click on version right here, and you're going to be able to see the 100 most recent versions of that file. This is very powerful, very important, because there may be a time where you have to go back to see exactly what something look like at a specific date and time, and you're going to have the ability to do that. This helps for when you want to restore things, but it also helps with compliance, because sometimes for legal reasons, you may have to go back in time and see exactly what an environment looked like. And we give you that ability to do it. So you can do it on that individual file level, but you can also do it right up here. You could click on this and it's going to show you kind of like a DVR function. You can go back in time, you could click back as far as you want. Each one of these dots is going to represent backups that you have access to. So we could click on the 14th. Here are the 3 different backup times that we ran. Now you could click OK, and it would show you exactly what this folder looked like on that date, on that time. So now you can see on the 14th, there were a lot more files inside of this person's drive as opposed to what there were today. And that's what gives you such a powerful tool that you guys can have. So it's a great piece to have. You can see we also put it in the two deletes. You can run manual backups. The restores are also very, very easy. You can restore any of these files back to the original owner, or you could restore them to somebody else if somebody comes to replace them. And then again, you can also click to restore those shared users. One other thing that I do want to cover, this is something that a lot of people find very useful, especially a lot of times schools and a lot of hospitals do as well. People that have a lot of employees that do have confidential data, that do have data that needs to be stored for a while after those people leave. So you can see that Kate has a trash can next to her name. This means that Kate has actually been deleted on G Suite, but all of her files are still going to be within our organization, inside of your Spin deployment. So the great thing you can see right here, if you clicked on Kate's Gmail, you can see Kate left the organization on April 14th. But you can see that you still have access to all of her emails. So you don't have to spend that extra money on a G Suite license every single month. We can help you guys save time and money by getting rid of that license and just keeping all of their files right here. Now, if Kate were to ever come back, you could restore her entire inbox right back to Kate. Or if you have somebody come to replace this person who's no longer with you, you can very quickly and easily restore this entire inbox right back to that person. So there's a lot of different ways that backup can help your company not only be proactive to protect you against ransomware and things like that, but also just for accidental deletions or any types of insider threats as well. So that pretty much wraps up the backup piece here for you, Selman. Did you have any other questions? Is there some other features that I can show you today?
Yes, there is. Most of the companies here are on a corporate environment that's now working from home. The Philippines is entering into a general quarantine setup in June, but a lot of companies that can and do ask their employees to be safe, working from home if possible. This applies to a lot of corporate work environments. The thing we see now is that when people are working from home, there is less control for IT administrators and security personnel to manage what people install, either on a plugin or relate to their app. Can you show us anything related to application risk assessment?
Absolutely. So this is actually one of the most powerful features that Spin offers. And it is what a lot of these very large corporations and even the small ones that want to start to implement some of these things, they take a lot of advantage of this. And this is what actually saves them a lot of money and a lot of time. It saves them a lot of money because before what would have needed a full team to be able to do and a lot of hours to dedicate to it, Spin makes this a fully automated process for you. And it even offers you an actual approval process that you can put in place. So what we're going to show you here, in case there's anybody out there that doesn't not currently have an approval process in place for applications. The reason this is important because this is the future of ransomware attacks. As us, I'm going to call us the victims, become smarter, at the same time, the criminals become smarter and they become smarter faster than we do. So what they're actually doing, because so many people have backup and because Google and Microsoft are starting to put those kind of monitors on email to say this might be a phishing email, please check the links, things along those lines. So now they're starting to look for other ways so that they can gain access into your organization. Excuse me. Now, as you saw in that demo, in the video that we had showed you earlier, is that an application actually got installed and it was actually able to grant access. And that is what the threat is, right? If a hacker is able to gain access to any of these applications that you guys have within your organization, they're going to have that full rewrite access. So they no longer need you to click on a link to install an application if they can gain access to one of the applications that you already have. So that's why it's so important. And it's not just applications, it's also going to be these Chrome extensions that we have here. And a lot of times now that people are working remote, there's a lot of different endpoints. So there's a lot of different devices that people are using and that their business email address is associated with. And especially if you're at home and you use your iPad, but then your kids, pick up that iPad and they start to play games on it, those games could leave you open to some security threats. And there's a lot of other things, right? Travel applications, a lot of regular things that you would have that end up giving a lot of access into your environment. And that's why this is so important, because if you're on G Suite and you're the administrator, you only have the ability to view applications that have been installed by you. So you can see here the ones with the check mark are actually going to show you that. Now, most large corporations and most medium-sized businesses have this policy in place to where if somebody wants to install an application, they have to send it in to the IT department, and then the IT department will do a lot of research on their own to try and figure out if this is or is not a legitimate application that they would like to have. So if you don't have something in place, I do highly recommend that it is something that you guys put in place so that you can start to monitor, because this is where a lot of the compliance and security threats are going to come from. So it's very important to have something like that in place. Now, if you don't have Spin, you, whoever the admin is, would have to go one by one into these applications and do their own research. But as we click on this one right here, you can see we gave it a risk score of 58. Now, you may be asking, why and how do you come up with this risk score? So we actually take a lot of different things into consideration for you. We do all of the research that you would have had to do if you were that IT admin and someone requested this. So we actually give you a full overview of what the application is. We have all of this other information right here so that you can look at it. And then we also give you kind of a breakdown on the three main types of risk that we want to make you aware of that's associated with this specific application. So that's going to be your business risk, your business ops risk, your security risk, and then also your compliance risk. So instead of you having to go try to figure all of these things out on your own, which would take a lot of time, you have the ability to just come right here, you'd click on it, and then you'd be able to read these. And then at this point, you could actually make the determination of whether or not you want this to apply to your organization. Another piece that we do want to show you is the scope of permissions. This is very important. And to give you a real world example, when I first started at Spin a while back, I had a calculator application. And when I had that calculator application, it actually had a lot more permissions than most people were aware of. And we were able to, with this tool right here, visualize the security permissions that each of these applications have. And a lot of times you'll see something that seems like a regular application, they will try to sneak in a lot of these other things so that they can gather your data and either sell it or maybe, they just want to have it just in case. So that's why this stuff is so important. And if you were to come here and you were to say, I don't think that this is an application that I would like to have across my organization, you could actually very quickly and easily click blacklist. And then from right here, we do give you the ability to get very granular with it. So you could click, I want to do an org unit. And again, this is a G Suite overlay. So all of these organizational units are going to be pulled directly from you or from that G Suite environment. So you could actually click the entire dev department. But if you were to say, my name is John and I don't want it to be for this person, then you could actually set it to where there's somebody that you don't want it to apply to. So then you could click on the whitelist and then actually whitelist it for that one person. So it's a very great thing for you to be able to do, very customizable, and it's a very quick and easy way. Again, this is going to be the future of ransomware. We talked a lot about those phishing attacks, but this is where they're all heading to. So this is very important, not only to protect yourself, but also for insider threats. A lot of our companies will actually add this whole piece right here into their onboarding and offboarding process for their employees. And they do that because they'll then monitor what types of applications these people are installing to make sure that they're not trying to steal any data on their way out of the door. We do also have a lot of security policies that you guys can put in place so that you can automatically blacklist specific categories. You can blacklist any applications for specific users. You can blacklist specific applications, or you can blacklist based off of scores as well. So it's very customizable, but again, this piece right here will protect you from the future of ransomware attacks. So as these new ones pop up, this is going to be your best bet to try and protect yourself from these external threats. And then again, it can be used and is currently being used by a lot of our customers as an internal threat for that onboarding and offboarding to help with compliance issues.
Wow. Austin and Selwyn, thanks very much for that information. You know, while we've been talking, there have been quite a large volume of questions that have been asked by, through the webinar. I just want everybody to know that, although we may not be able to answer all the questions, Jeremy is taking track of them and he'll get them to the appropriate people, and we'll make sure we get these back to you. So let me start with one of my questions. Selwyn, I had read that ransomware attacks have topped credit card fraud as the #1 cyber threat, around the world. Are you seeing these kinds of attacks and in the Philippines?
Oh, Selwyn, I think you might be on mute right now.
Thank you for that. I was just talking into a muted phone. Yes, Dwayne, to answer your question, I agree. The problem with ransomware is that it's often not talked about. Nobody wants to say that they've been attacked by ransomware. And some problems there is that without that spreading of awareness, more people gets vulnerable. So what happens is usually there's security companies that does studies, does checks, and there is a recent data as recent as December 2019 that shows that there's about 1 million Filipinos that are attacked last year. So there, and that was an increase from the 2018 data, and this was specific to ransomware. So if you expand the attacks, I think you will see the obvious implications of not just ransomware but even phishing and everything else. All the banks today are giving notices on emails, Facebook accounts, SMS that's warning us on how to protect ourselves, on not to identify, not just to give out our pins, our passwords to just anyone. I've recently gotten a notice from BPI bank that related to these stuff. So yes, I think this is relevant. Most people are just need to know about it.
Thanks, Selwyn. Thanks. Austin, a question from the audience. His question was, I have my own local backup, so why do I need to back up and store with Spin?
Yeah, this is a great question. I get it a lot. So, the local backup is kind of the big piece here, right? So while some files are going to be kept on local devices, in this day and age, the majority of a business's important business files are going to be stored in the cloud. And especially now that everybody's working remote in the COVID, they have to be kept in the cloud so that you can easily share them between your organization and update them on a regular basis. And it's not just the businesses that know that, right? The cyber criminals know that, and because of that, they're actually moving away from trying to encrypt and attack these local device files. And what they're actually doing is they're moving directly from, once you kind of give them access, they're going right to the cloud. A lot of times they're not even trying to kind of get access to your local device files. They want to go to the cloud because that's the way they know that they're going to be able to inflict the most damage on a company. And then at that point, they're going to be able to ask the most money from that ransom payment. So while that local backup may be important, the cloud backup that Spin actually provides you is what's going to be the most important piece for you to be able to protect yourself going forward.
So, you mentioned cloud backup. So, majority of the users are on G Suite or on Office 365. Aren't Google and Microsoft providing protection?
Yeah, so this is kind of a common misconception, right? So there's a big difference between what Google and Microsoft what they offer, right? It's kind of more of an archive than a backup, and there's a big difference between the two of those. And you know, a lot of people think that if they have backup with G Suite or Office, but in reality what they have is basically a limited archive of those files. Whereas if you have Spin's backup, you get a complete backup of all of your files. As I showed you, you get the exact folders and the file hierarchies and the sharing permissions, but you get all of that, and we're going to store every single version of that. And what that means is that if you ever need to roll back to any specific period of time, you do have the ability to do so. If you were just going straight off of Microsoft and Google, you wouldn't be able to do that. Because
Thanks.
again, there is that delineation between an archive and a backup.
Thank you. So when, we were discussing earlier, and you had mentioned that you had some experiences with some of your clients and the use of, Spin backup. Maybe you can talk more about that.
Yeah, okay. So I obviously I can't say who this client is, but we do have experience that the setup was that there was a disgruntled employee that was sharing sensitive financial data to a competitor. It was leaking confidential information. The boss sort of like got wind of it, but wasn't able to prove it because the employee has deleted the email. The employee was, but what happened was, unknown to the employee, the boss has subscribed actually to Spin, and that from there, sorry, from the Spin subscription, they were able to restore the file and actually prove that the employee did leak sensitive information. So that was a very good use case because Spin does provide the option to have the service function on the back end hidden from the employees. It's entirely up to the IT security policies of the company if they want to make it known. And this is within the rights of the organization because the employees are using corporate resources. It was a company computer. It was a company account. So the company has full rights to that information and control.
Okay. Thanks, Alwyn. Hey, Austin, this is a question that came up that's similar to the previous one, but it was more specific to, the question was, I am currently protected by Office 365, so why do I need Spin 1?
Yep. So again, this is another very common question. So it goes both ways, right? So this one was specific to Office, but it's the same thing for Google as well, right? Google and Office, they both have some security features built in, but right, their main focus is not cybersecurity. That's not what they're geared towards. And because of that, there are some gaps that allow for data leaks and breaches. Another thing to keep in mind is that most of these ransomware attacks do happen, just like we saw in that video that I showed of a ransomware attack happening on an Office environment, that most of these actual attacks happen because an employee clicks on a malicious link and then they grant a wide variety of permissions to that bad application that's been installed. But the thing to keep in mind is that once those permissions have been granted, at that point, the hackers are going to have full access to your environment and they can take a variety of actions without ever being detected. So while they do have some types of security measures there, a lot of these times the applications are already in there. They've been granted the permissions, so there is no way for those people, Google and Office, to be able to detect these. So that's why having something like Spin in place is so important, right? Because we use those advanced AI and proprietary algorithms that I talked about earlier that allow us to detect any abnormal file or user behavior. And that right there is what actually allows us to be able to stop these ransomware attacks that otherwise would have gone unnoticed.
So Austin, Selwyn actually brought this up earlier about, the fact that he spoke to people and the question was, well, what is ransomware? And as I do presentations, I'm getting the same questions. But you've been dealing with this now for Spin for a while, Austin. Maybe you can give us some, without giving names, give us some examples of some of the experiences and that you've had with ransomware attacks, real ransomware attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have access to the dark web and I poke around in there sometimes to try and keep up and see what's going on. And, it's pretty crazy to see some of the things that are out there. And there's new attacks every single day that are popping up. And that's why having something like Spin is so important, because having a legacy ransomware protection tool in place will only help protect you from a known ransomware attack. And the only way that they can update these scripts is somebody has to be hit with this attack first. You don't want to be that person. And because of that, you want to have something like Spin in place that's going to not try to look for a ransomware attack. All we look for is abnormal file or user behavior. And that allows us to detect these attacks faster than anybody else. And one of the things that I'm starting to see is that there's actually ransomware as a service. So the same way that you would subscribe to Netflix or your new Hulu binge watching experience, people can subscribe on the dark web to a ransomware. So if you have a disgruntled employee or you have somebody that just doesn't like you, they can actually go in there, they can pay a small fee to a hacker, and then that criminal is going to just start to target you with these phishing attacks. They're going to gain as much data on you as you can to try and infiltrate your entire organization. So those are some actual real world examples of things that we've seen happen on a regular basis. But not only that, what we're starting to see more and more of is that it's not just these large enterprise customers that are being hit with the ransomware attacks. Those are the ones that you see in the news simply because, that's what's going to get the most clicks these days, right? That's what everybody wants, is to get the most clicks on a news story. And as Selwyn mentioned before, a lot of times you don't hear about the ransomware attacks that are actually happening on a daily basis. And a lot of times what's happening is they're actually targeting businesses that are between 5 and up to 50 employees. And the reason that they're doing that is because they know that these organizations are most likely to not have the correct tools in place yet, right? Because they always think it's never going to happen to me. So that's why they target the people that think it's never going to happen to them, because they're going to be the easiest targets for them.
Yeah, Austin, that actually leads into the next question. But along those lines, as I was preparing for this, I was kind of reading some of the Philippine news and things. And so when I saw that the DICT that you mentioned earlier had recently come out and is urging large healthcare hospital facilities to look at employing or putting in place protections against ransomware and phishing schemes. But so you see that they're talking to the big boys. But the question that came out was, we are a small business, and why would they target us? And the second question is, why do we need ransomware protection? We can just shut down or change or try and recover our back up the files. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Selwyn.
Yes, sure. I'd like to quote a saying from Mike Tyson, actually. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So that same thing applies. As a small business, you can only take so much hits. If you're hit with a ransomware attack, one thing to know is the hackers are not just like they're thieves at the end of the day. Okay, it's how they steal money from you. They take your data, they do ransoms, or they're kidnapping your data. But the way these operations happen is that they target vulnerable and opportunistic situations. So they're not going to go after people who's protected, that's harder to attack. They're going to pick up whoever they can because it's easy money. It doesn't matter if you're big or if you're small. And what happens if you're a smaller company, you are going to suffer the consequences. Besides being the direct loss of your data, any reputation loss that you can get hit with legal issues. Because in the Philippines, we have something we call the Data Privacy Act. This is a law in place already, and the law states that you have to have a data privacy officer in your company. You have to have measures in place. Now, a law being said and having implemented is there, but not all companies are honestly very compliant. And the reality is, if you get hit, the law is already there to make you liable. You cannot go to your customer and say that it's not my fault because I did not take proper steps. That's not going to do well for you in the courts. And if you're getting hit with a lawsuit and all that, the $73,000 cost, small companies won't even survive that. So I think it's much better to be proactive than to suffer that consequence.
Okay, thanks, Selwyn. We're running a little long on time. So I'll just remind everyone, please, we are keeping all of the questions. Jeremy is tallying those up, and he'll make sure that we do respond to them. So one last question, this is one for Selwyn. Where can people get more information about i4Asia, as well as Spin1, and about pricing?
Okay. Well, what i4Asia, you can always contact us on our website, i4asiacorp.com. That's shortcut for corporation. We have a Facebook account, and I think can you show on the slides our contact information? Yeah. So again, screenshot this slide. There you go. There's easy ways to contact us. Christine and Joyme are very nice people. You will enjoy talking to them. They can help you get set up with Spin. And being partners of, I need to remind people that Spin works on Office 365 or G Suite. So we are also partners with both Microsoft and Google, so we can help you get set up with G Suite and Office 365 as well for your company. And as a partner for all of these, we do not charge on top of the SRP pricing. So our pricing is what the pricing has been set by the brand, and you get local support. You don't need to worry on pricing. It's affordable. If you can afford coffee, you can certainly afford data security. It's not going to be that much different.
Sometimes I think. No, thanks again. Thank Austin, Selwyn. Thanks for the presentation, Jerry. We'll bring this to a close. I wanted to thank everybody for attending. I know how everybody's time is so valuable now at the end of the day. So I just wanted to wish everybody aloha and take care. Be safe.
Thank you. Keep in touch.